Hey everybody, TODD DAMMIT KERNS here. Welcome to TODD DAMMIT KERNS Talks to His Friends. Brought to you today by my all-time favorite Canadian music store in Toronto and Montreal, Steve's Music. I've spent a lot of time in there and I spent a lot of money in there. Join me next time, won't you? Today, I'm chatting with a very dear friend of mine who I've been watching blossom into a massive career. Found her just randomly in Hollywood. She's in an amazing band called Vigil of War, which is her own band, and has since gone on to be big leagues with power metal group Dragonforce. Today, the amazing ALICIA VIGIL.
Hell yeah.
Here we are. ALICIA VIGIL in the house. ALICIA VIGIL in shirt form and then in person as well. How do you like that?
Yes, in short format and in
in the internet format as well. So yeah, actually you're the first female I've talked to in this whole thing, which I think is
I'm honored.
It's really important. And you know, I talked to you about this quite a while ago because I think it's really important to have this conversation because in my life I have known, and I still know, a million female musicians, and I think it's really interesting. It's an interesting conversation because it's such a different perspective, and I don't even really think about it as a brain dead dude. You don't really think about how different and how very similar it is as well. But I remember a friend of mine saying once, well, if you just sit down one day and listen to rock radio, you have to think about how many female voices do you hear in the course of a couple of hours versus how many male voices. And I thought, wow, I've never thought of it that way. And it really changed my perspective because coming up in the 90s, there was a gigantic girl power movement that was, we loved all those acts, you know, L7 and Hole and
a bunch of,
like the Breeders, Veruca Salt, like it was just everywhere. And it was just like, and I just thought, you know, well, this is it. This is the beginning of this thing. And it is somewhat still, I mean, obviously it exists in every format. Pop music seems to have a lot more of a female stamp, but in rock music, it's a whole other animal. So that's why I think it's important to get you on here. But starting with, you and I met on Melrose Avenue in Los Angeles, which is the most Hollywood thing you can do.
Yeah, right? Super Hollywood way to meet, but I think it's awesome. It was super, you know,
it was
natural, random, just like you and your wife, you know, we just all hit it off, and we're like, oh, we can tell we're like kind of like
like-minded,
you know, like what do you do? Where are you from?
And that's really funny how that happens because in essence, I didn't know you were a musician, although of course, you know, you seem like a musician, and I think that's a very it seems like a really lame thing to say. That person looks like a musician, you know, but you know, we just thought you were awesome, and then it turns out you're in this band that's amazing, and we went to see Vigil of War, your band Vigil of War, several times, and got to see you, or at least a few times. I think I definitely remember you at the Whisky. You guys were doing like a house band at the Whisky a Go-Go for a while, which has to be the most amazing thing for somebody growing up in that community.
Definitely. I mean, we played our very first show there, which was a huge deal for us, and you know, and eventually did a few residencies there, and I mean, which, you know, is what I think you've been to, and yeah, it's incredible because I mean, pretty much every band you can think of got really, I mean, many of them got their start there, so it's a big honor for us to kind of get our start there as well. And
a lot of people, that's one of their biggest aspirations, is to play on that stage. And for you to have been able to do it so young and to be so comfortably sort of grandfathered in a sense, to just take over the stage once a week for however long you guys wanted to was a great honor, I think. It says a lot about you guys for sure. But well, let's go back to, I always like to go back because I'm always curious how you grew up in the Los Angeles area.
Yeah, I grew up in like the Pasadena area for the most part. So it's about, you know, half hour away, and you know, it's far enough away from the crazy stuff going on, but like close enough where I could still get to it if I wanted to, you know, so.
Well, I think that's always that's always interesting because again, you came up in an area, Pasadena, of course. Van Halen hailed from Pasadena, and but growing up so close to it, you know, like that's another thing is so many people are aspiring to get to Los Angeles. My whole life, it was all like, we got to get to LA, you know, like that was for people from like Europe or across the country or Canada. Everybody was trying to get to Los Angeles because that's where the record labels are. That's where you could showcase in all those, the very clubs that you play on a regular basis. So, and I assume your parents are into rock and roll or something, or how does this all come about?
They are. I mean, they raised me on good music, mostly like a lot of new wave, punk, even reggae and classic rock. And so, you know, I grew up listening to a lot of that, like a lot of the Cure and Smiths and all kinds, you know, that kind of stuff.
That's so cool. So what was the big impetus? Like, was there a moment where you said like, this is my band, or this is what I want to do, or did anything like you know how when people talk about like in the 60s, then we saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, that didn't happen for me. I wasn't, that was before my time, but, and a lot of people just like the next day went and bought guitars and started bands.
Totally.
You know what I mean? So did that happen for you with any particular artist, or was it just kind of the whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think even from an early age, I was always musically inclined. I mean, not only did my parents raise me on good stuff, but I mean, I remember being like 3 and like getting a toy keyboard and like just kind of like being able to like, for whatever reason, like do things by ear, you know, like learning like, oh, my favorite Titanic song, like, you know, Celine Dion, like, and then, so then doing that, and then, you know, I picked up even randomly like I did start with piano a little bit at, I think when I was like 5.
Oh, wow, great.
I wish I really stuck to it more. I only did it for a couple years, but then I did flute in elementary school.
That's,
so, I mean, I was kind of getting like the theory and reading music, learning what music's all about. And I think it was probably about when I was in 5th grade, which, you know, for in America, I was probably about like 10 maybe.
Sure.
And that was back when Fuse TV was still playing like really good rock music videos. And,
sure.
You know, they don't do that anymore, unfortunately, but I did catch that era. So, I mean, I had, you know, my parents' taste in music, which I loved, but then that was kind of when I got my own, you know, taste of like, oh, who's My Chemical Romance, who's Avenged Sevenfold, and the Used, and that was kind of like my introduction to like, wow, these bands are cool. They look cool. They're sewing on top of a coffin. Like, I want to do that. Like, so.
Well, and it makes a big difference when you find somebody, you know, like closer to your age. It's one thing to like look at Led Zeppelin or any of those, Aerosmith or something like that, and go, those guys are great, but like it's when you find something more contemporary and more around your own age, even though I suppose My Chemical Romance or whoever was, you know, several years older than you, but at least you kind of look at it and go like, oh, I think I might be able to do this. Was there female artists that you came across that sort of made you think like,
I mean, my dad raised me on like, you know, the Pretenders and you know, Blondie and, you know, stuff like that. Where
those are both amazing right there. Yeah, and Joan.
Behind and Debbie Harry and Joan Jett are like some of my top females. So luckily, I already kind of had that with you know, my dad. But I mean, at that time, I felt like there weren't too many of the, I guess, that style of emo or whatever you want to call it, rock and roll.
was something like No Doubt kind of already?
No Doubt was, that's true. No Doubt was a big one. I remember that was one of my first CDs that I ever had. So No Doubt was definitely a badass female fronted band that a
lot of girls I know, that was a touchstone for them, that Gwen fronting a rock band, you know what I mean, was like, that's what I want to do, you know, kind of thing. But I mean, so when did you actually start falling in love with a guitar or a bass or whichever came first?
Yeah, it was guitar. I remember I got my first, it was only an acoustic guitar after my 6th grade graduation. I was like so excited to finally get it and started taking little lessons, and then got an electric guitar after that.
What kind of electric was it?
It was one of those like crappy little like Fender starter ones that come with a little amp, and you know.
That's great.
But it was cool, and
Yeah.
it ended up getting stolen actually because I made that
Bummer.
move of leaving it in the car, and
That happens. We all do stuff like that.
Yeah. Which then led me to my Sinister Gates from Avenged Sevenfold Schecter. I did get that when I was young. That was like my dream guitar at the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I joined School of Rock.
Oh, is that so? You actually got to do that. See, when I was a kid, there was no. In fact, not only did that not exist, no one was trying to encourage you to play rock music. In fact, it was sort of like frowned upon to some degree. But then people like me start raising kids like you who kind of where it's normal to hear loud rock and roll music. So now I'm surrounded by these kids who come in and shred and have been encouraged to play loud rock and roll with their friends. And I'm like, wow, what an awesome thing that is. So what did that do for you as far as, and that was guitar, like you went in there kind of playing as a guitar player?
Yeah, that was my first experience. I mean, kind of getting that band setting, like playing with other, another guitarist and a bass player and a singer and a drummer. And I've never done that or played live before on a stage,
Yeah, of course,
I got all of that kind of interaction, I've really grown a lot since then. I mean, because I've always been I'm still very awkward, but I'm definitely a lot more comfortable with myself. So back then, I'm very quiet and I just wanted to learn the guitar, and I really didn't necessarily, like a lot of the kids came from kind of a rich, area and went to a specific music school, and they all were already very good, and I just was like that noob in the corner by myself wearing my The Cure shirt okay but I really wanted to learn and do it, so I'm glad I stuck to it because I wasn't always the most social, I'd say, in that setting, but I did take a lot from it because you also play with all kinds of different skill levels of kids, or different people, and I think that's very important to do. I think we had even talked about that before, how playing with someone better than you or even not worse than you kind of can help you in every kind of situation,
Absolutely.
It really did do a lot for me. So.
I mean, it's the kind of thing where you have to, whether it's math or science or English or music, it's like you have to challenge yourself to kind of, especially when you find a passion like music, it's really easy to be the best musician in your class or the best musician in your school. It's like, if you don't challenge yourself to play with people who are better than you, you kind of will get stunted, So I think when you start playing with somebody who's more advanced than you, because it's interesting to hear you say that, you're kind of like, these guys are better than me. But I would be very curious to know that now that you're in the music business and, touring the world with Dragonforce and all this kind of stuff, that to look back on yourself as being this young, shy kid, a lot of those kids, I bet you none of them really even pursued a career in music at all, or I'm not, I guess that's a little generalized, but so it's really interesting to hear you say, oh boy, I don't know, but then you go on and have this awesome career doing it. It says a lot, I think, that because a lot of it is talent and a lot of it is ability, but some of it's this other thing, this passion, this kind of I'm going to do this, even when you fall flat on your face, you still get back up and do it again.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's part of an experience like that, playing with other people, because sometimes you're going to play with, I like playing with that person, that one not so much, I suppose that's the beauty of a School of Rock. Do they pair you? Are you always with the same group of kids, or does it kind of get paired up differently all the time?
Yeah, so it's cool because every song that you would do, you'd be with a different group of people. They'd intermix you with different kids. So it really was.
That's really smart.
Kind of pushing you out of your comfort zone, finding all types of different skill levels and trying to make a song work. So I learned a lot from it, and I definitely took a lot away from it. So.
And how old were you then?
Yeah. I was 12 when I started that.
Okay,
so I did that for about 3 years, I guess. And, and then I kind of started doing my own bands finally.
And then it's sort of like finding somebody at school to play with kind of thing, or how does that work?
There was never really anybody at school that, listened to the stuff I did. I feel like I grew up, because it's such a weird, different generation where, rap is on the radio and nothing good. So
yeah, it's an interesting.
Kind of just find my own clique at shows and meet people that way. And
it's an interesting phenomenon that I've learned, because when I was a kid, I grew up in a small town in the middle of nowhere, and it still seemed like everybody played something. Like we all played guitar, or not everybody, but I mean, quite a few of us could get together and jam. And it's a new phenomenon to imagine that even the guitar is not necessarily something you just naturally gravitate towards in the 21st century. So yeah, I could see that being interesting. So then you would you just started going to shows like as a kid?
Yeah.
And what kind of shows are these?
Just going to, I do you know the band Black Veil Brides?
Yeah, of course.
I remember I went to their very first show in LA when there was 20 people there in the back alley of this art gallery that I still go to all the time. And
Great.
So I mean, I started to get to know them a lot and, meet people through that band. That was a big band that I met a lot of people through, and, going to see the U's, and, I'd go to concerts with my parents too, of course,
Yeah.
But, it was kind of those type of bands that were newer and just about to break that kind of I got to witness it firsthand and see what these bands were doing at the time, and taking mental note of okay, wow, these people work really hard, or these people did this and it worked, or this people did this and it didn't work, so I'll make a note of that. And
that's true. You brought that up before, because it is interesting to play with people who and to witness people that even to witness a band that you think is terrible. Sometimes you go, okay, well, I'm not going to do that, or you learn things from that as well, or just watching bands, and that can work. Watching concerts at home on TV, or watching YouTube, is you just become sort of inspired to be more like this person or less like that person. This is working, this isn't working, or working for you, at least the way you like to do things. And that makes a big difference as far as watching, seeing it is as important as almost doing it in a lot of ways, because you can learn a lot just watching how a good band interacts musically and interacts on stage and performs, because you're a performer. You're not up there looking at your shoes, you're up there looking, bitching and tearing it up. So you obviously have that bug that is performer as well as a musician. That's clearly the way you do things.
Aww,
and but I think that it's really interesting to hear you say that, because imagining trying to find other kids to play with, is that you're at a show like My Chemical Romance or Black Veil Brides, and you see other people and eventually start to kind of connect the dots that, hey, that person plays drums, and hey, that person plays this, and the next thing you know, you're let's get together kind of thing? Or
yeah, I mean, I remember a band that actually me and Shane that plays with me now in Vigil of War, we had a band that didn't necessarily make it out of the garage because this was before I wanted to ever sing. So I remember looking for a singer and a drummer and just sampling some of our demo songs, in stacks of CDs at shows, and I'd just be handing them out hey, looking for a singer, hey, looking for a drummer.
Cool.
That guy looks cool. Hey, do you play are you a drummer by chance? I don't know. I just eventually started just going up to people and
that's
asking
so
around.
Cool.
And I mean, even just getting to know friends and that, in the scene leads you to one place or another. My first band that I joined was, had just gone to see another friend play, and the opening band had become friendly with me because of that show, and then had asked, hey, I know you kind of play bass, do you want to join my band? And that's kind of how that happened. So
and is that when you
networking and getting to know people, I guess,
Is that when you switched over to bass guitar?
That was my first official thing, basically, of playing bass. I mean, I had been messing around with the bass for probably a year before that, you know, but I still felt at that time I was still a guitar player more, which I would definitely not say the same thing now, but
yeah, well, I mean, that it all depends on what opportunity presents itself, because it was the same for me. I would have been happy playing rhythm guitar over there or just bass over there, and just different things kind of present themselves. As the same way you became a singer is exactly the same way I ended up being a singer in different things too. Is it's kind of eventually you just kind of go, well, I'll sing this and see what happens.
Yeah.
So at that point you just came in as the bass player. What kind of bass did you have back then?
Back then, I had a Yamaha RBX something or other. It was actually a really good bass.
I was going to say, Yamaha makes good quality instruments for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I still gotta get that back. It's actually my friend's storage unit right now, but it's fine.
It's safe. That's the important
It
thing.
is safe.
Yeah.
Somewhere in LA.
There you go. So
But
does that band play shows, or is it mostly like a rehearsal kind of jam thing, or?
we did play shows. Actually, our singer had owned a venue in LA, which is
Oh,
cool. So I don't
cool.
know if you ever went to like a small club called Amplify.
I
They're
remember
not there
Amplify.
anymore,
Yeah.
but they were off
Yeah.
Melrose.
I remember that. Yeah.
So yeah, our band basically, that was our practice spot, and then we'd play shows when other bands would come there. And we played a couple other spots in LA, like the Mint and Los Globos, and yeah, so we played around a little bit. So
And these are all, this is the other interesting thing I find, because when I came up, it was really hard to find places to play your own music, which is a different phenomenon altogether, where Los Angeles, like when I talk to Slash sometimes, or sometimes Slash will go, hey, do you want to play Jumpin' Jack Flash for the encore tonight? And I'm like, sure. And he goes, do you know it? I go, oh, yeah, I know it. I've been playing that since I was, 11 in some band. And it's just kind of like, I came up in this era of like, there was just a ton of things, of gigs where you just went off and you played top 40 music or classic rock. At the time it was, they would have been, I guess it would have been classic rock. But when you grow up in Hollywood or you're playing in that scene, it's like, no, that cover scene doesn't really exist. It's like you guys write songs and you go and play them. So you just came in there and started putting songs together, or did the songs already exist, or how did that work?
With that band, they had already existed. So I was just kind of walking in as like the bass player. And it wasn't until, the next project that I was like, I kind of have my own vision for what I want to do. And I became the leader, even though I was just the bass player, and I knew the elements I wanted it to sound like.
And what was that project? So, I mean, how long were you with the, was there a name of this band? The Amplify band?
That was Bad Wolf, which we were actually more of like an indie band, actually.
Huh.
So it was cool, something different. And I liked the people in the band, but then, I was definitely more into rock and metal, and kind of wanted to do that, melodic metal rock type band, and which is what I kind of had started with Shane. And then,
so you played with Shane back then. You're a guitar player now, who you've been playing with him since you guys were kids?
Yeah, I think I was 17 when we were doing that. So
amazing.
Yeah. Get around.
He's an amazing dude and a great guitar player. I love that guy.
Yeah.
I should get him on here one of these days, because I'd be very curious.
Yeah.
But okay, so then you go in this next band, you start your own thing, or how did that all come
that
about?
was kind of like the first time that I was like writing my own songs too for the first time. So we had we still have all these actually cool demos that we use hopefully eventually too, because they are some really cool parts to these songs.
Is this the act that went on to be Vigil of War, or is this something different entirely?
Sort of similar. I mean, basically this is the project that never really made it out of the garage, because it got
we've all had those.
Came along, and then
and
that kind of took me off the ground finally into a real but it seems like every project that I've done has like gotten me, a new experience. Like Bad Wolf was like my first real band, and then that garage type band, I was writing my own songs and working with like a producer for the first time really, and like sitting down, like knowing the song structures and rehearsing and being a band leader. And then She Demons came along, which was the all-girl band that I had for a little bit.
Was that the All Girls Misfits tribute?
It wasn't actually a tribute band. It was an original project that was put together by Jerry.
Oh, that's what it was. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was that project.
Now, how did that all work? Because that's Priya from Canada.
Yeah.
Was the singer that? It was amazing. But so there's just like a phone call happens out of nowhere, or how does this work?
Totally. I mean, it's just crazy how like overnight your life can kind of change. So basically what had happened is that same band I had mentioned earlier, Blackville Brides, since I had known them since I was literally 13, like, I'd kind of grown up with them. The singer, Andy, had talked to Jerry only one time when they played some kind of show together. And, Jerry was mentioning, I really want to put this girl band together. I'm thinking about it. And he said, well, I've got a couple, I know Alicia, she plays bass. So all of a sudden I get a call from Jerry only, like, hi, Like, what?
Wow. That's like getting a call from Santa Claus or something. It was like, what?
Yeah, is this a prank call? Like,
That's amazing. You know, I've had a Jerry only, he's here somewhere actually, a Jerry only, or maybe it's still in storage, but the Jerry only bobblehead is on top of my amp at every show. It just sits there.
Hell yeah.
I've had to replace it a couple times because on the road it just gets trashed, but I've always had him with me. I'm a huge nerd for those guys. So is that when did you eventually get a Jerry only bass?
I did.
Do you still have it?
Yeah, I could, if you want, I can.
Yeah, let's take a look. That thing is a monster.
It is. I still record with it.
Oh,
pretty much on every even Vigil of War song now because it's just so loud and in your face. I love it.
Of course. So I'd love to take a look at this. In the meantime, I'll talk to the wall. You're welcome to my show. This is what I do. I talk to walls.
So heavy.
I bet you it's monstrous. Yeah, we lost her entirely. Now she's up getting a sandwich or something. Who knows? I'm playing with my damn it anti-star stress doll, by the way. Oh my God. Come on. That is nuts.
Yes.
Wow. So it's
Jerry only Devastator.
Devastator, yes.
Hand built this and designed it.
Yeah, he makes them in like Jersey somewhere, doesn't he? Or he did. I don't know.
Yeah, he has his own machine shop, but I think he'd even like got it. He got like the Louisville like slugger baseball bat wood, and like it's weird. This bass has no knobs on it either, so it's like
you just plug it in and it's on.
Yep. You have to like mute your strings, make sure it like
Wow. So yeah, because
loud bass.
I have what I stole from Nicky Six on his bass, because the Nicky Six Blackbird, it's a Thunderbird. His was basically all it had was a toggle switch that turned it on and off.
Oh,
so it's a similar idea, but it was just like one tone volume. It's just on or off. Right. So it's basically a step further from Jerry's bass, which it is what it is. Yeah. Where my bass that I designed has a volume. But I didn't bother with the tone knobs. I said, look, with the slash thing, it's just, in your face, this bass tone. But I did want a kill switch on stage because I wanted to be able to, because Jerry's clearly just on all the time. Yeah. Where I wanted to be able to kind of kill it between songs. And right. I'm pretty anal about like shutting myself off between. I grew up around like older guys who were like, this is professional, this is unprofessional. So that kind of stuff just stuck in my brain. But that is amazing. So now Jerry gave you that, or how'd that work?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I remember getting this. I think I opened it on Christmas.
What? That's awesome.
Right before we flew out there for the first time too, to record our EP.
And that was where?
Huh?
In Jersey or something? Where did you do that?
Yeah, we flew out and stayed at Jerry's for like, a couple weeks, and it's nuts. It's like there's so many crazy, awesome stories from that time period. But yeah, it was amazing. I mean, so I got to be, this was like my She Demons bass, because we were the direct brainchild band of Jerry, so it only makes sense if like the bass player has his bass, and
Did Jerry produce the stuff, or who produced your recordings?
His son Jerry did. Yeah.
Jerry Jr.
Jerry Jr. Yep. Yeah. And then we had Ed Stasium.
Oh yeah, Ed. Yeah, that's amazing.
He mixed everything, and he recorded Priya's vocals, and we did some background vocals and stuff like that at Ed's. So as young as you were, because when to a guy like me who came up on all this stuff, knowing full well who Ed Stasium is, and just nerding out to his music since I was a child, was any of this like lost on you in the moment? Like does Jerry only is an action figure, you know what I mean? Like he's like some sort of like mythical character almost, And with guys like Ed Stasium, was it kind of like this weird, like, okay, so we're talking about Ramones albums and all this kind of stuff. Was it immediately apparent to you, or was it kind of something you had to kind of wrap your head around as it was happening? I mean, it was just overwhelming in the best way, I guess. I'm 19 years old and like working like overnight, just working with these legends, like, like it was just I was just honored to be there.
It's fitting the way your trajectory is unfolding. I'd like to say the way it's gone, but I know you're so young that it's still going and it's going to go for a long time. But watching it happen as your friend, just watching this whole journey unfold has been really like, wow, like these opportunities keep coming up. And it says a lot about first of all, your ability and your talent, but also who you are as a person. And sometimes I think that, having the affability and openness to kind of go with the flow on certain things kind of creates opportunities. Because I suppose in the She Demons, it's sort of like, were you like a creative part of that, or was it sort of like you were like, so you're like, it's kind of like everybody's kind of like many cooks in the kitchen, I assume.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I really did, ultimately it was Jerry's brainchild, but I was kind of the person that helped him the most with planning. I was like the She Demons director in a way, even though I was like the youngest in the band. Like, I think because maybe I was the bass player or whatever, he just like took to me. But I mean, yeah, I would be on the phone with him every day, typing emails, like going over song parts and like, mailing stuff for him and just, doing whatever it was that, he wanted me to do for the band. And
how did this work with your parents and stuff like that? Were they, I mean, at any point, are your parents concerned about their little girl going off to New Jersey with, who is this person? Who's Jerry only? Like, were they, I imagine they were aware of who the Misfits were.
Yeah, I know, they were really supportive. They've never really like held me back from anything.
That's so rad.
And I'm very fortunate for that, but
no, I mean, yeah, I'm sure they're,
they just, I mean, he started immediately sending packages of Misfits stuff and the bass and all the stuff in the mail. Wow. So they knew it was real. And, I had gotten Kiki, who plays with me now, actually in Vigil of War as well. I had auditioned. I just met her maybe like a month beforehand, and randomly, I think at the Whisky. And like,
wow.
I was like, hey, I know that I didn't actually know as many female musicians at the time, because I was still so young that I wasn't going out to like clubs or bars yet. So like I only knew however many people that I knew, and she was one of them. And I'm so grateful that it just worked out. It just, everything worked out for a reason. And
well, she's fantastic.
I was going out there with a friend as well. So it wasn't like I was totally alone. And Andy had, my parents knew Andy, and he's the one who set this up. So I think they felt probably a bit more comfortable.
That's so rad. I mean, like the fact that, obviously you have to have supportive parents. Otherwise it's, well, not, you don't have to, because a lot of us had to kind of have that, I'll show them kind of experience too, which is a totally different thing. But at least you had that kind of support. So how long does the She Demons go on for? Like, how long of an experience was that?
It was only about a year, a little over a year. We did a lot in that year. I felt like that whole year was She Demons. Like, we were in New Jersey for like, we lived there for probably 4 months of that year, and then we were on tour for 6 weeks. And I toured even, Jerry had taken me, he wanted me and Kiki to learn the ropes, like, on the teching side of things, which is really cool. So, I mean, I've gotten to learn so much just from being around these people, like, and he took us on like some short runs to tech for the Misfits, which was like, oh my God, what the hell? Like,
what does that entail? What does that entail, teching for the Misfits?
I mean, they're their own like I don't know, type of band. Like they
are
their own way, and it's cool. I mean, I really did learn a lot. So I mean, I just have to like change Jerry's strings every day, and like he'd have like certain signs, like this is like, hey, go throw me, like give me a vocal zone, or like make sure that things don't come unplugged, or they're pretty straightforward punks. It's just like plug in and like set all the cab up and
Now is this the reformed with Glenn Danzig Misfits at this point, or is this the earlier or prior version?
Yeah, this was right before the reunion, which is kind of part of why She Demons kind of broke up in the end, but which is fine, everything works out. But this was Jerry Only's version of the Misfits. So.
Yeah, I've seen multiple versions of Jerry's. I saw it once with Marky Ramone and Des Gardena from Black Flag, which was awesome for what it was. Yeah. But it's amazing. it's so, it almost take it for granted now, for all those years waiting for Glenn and Jerry and Doyle to be playing together. It's sort of, to see it now, you're like, you kind of go, oh yeah, of course that's happening. But you kind of go, but for 20, I don't know how many years it was, we all kind of thought that's never going to happen. That will never happen, you know. And then
even during the year before, Jerry was like, there's no way that's going to happen. Like, he just was very, so we were all shocked, like, wow, okay.
Well, I mean, like, you know, the Eagles said that. Guns N' Roses said that, you know, like everybody. I mean, Van Halen said they would never get back together with David Lee Roth, but it's kind of like, it all seems to find a way to work itself out. So, but it's so cool that you got that kind of like, that kind of experience, because there is something to be said about, like Noel Gallagher was a guitar tech, you know, for, I can't remember the name of the band now. They were like a, you know, a band he really respected when he was coming up, you know, and I'm sure there has to be some, I'm not qualified to tech anything. I could barely work what we're talking on. But it's sort of like, it shows you, you know, when you go off from that experience into doing Vigil of War, it must have created a whole new side of how you want. Because I mean, there's a visual aspect of Vigil of War that you have to take a step back and go, there's a machine gun microphone, your makeup and the hat and everything is very realized. It doesnn't seem like this is just accidentally happening. It's like the look of the band, the sound of the band is very sort of, which I think is most of the best groups have kind of like worked that out in one form or another, and presenting something that's not just kind of like, here's some music, you know. So how long, when you step into, is the She Demons in your mind, are you starting to think about your own thing, or you probably always had your own thing in mind along the way?
I mean, I was fully into She Demons. Like, that was my band. After it broke up, I was so devastated, you know, because I spent like every day like working on it, thinking about it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was really heartbreaking when the project broke up, and, you know, those girls are my sisters, but it was because of She Demons that, you know, there was a situation where Priya, because she had her other band Diamonds, you know, it's Canadian.
Yeah, we know them well, yeah.
They got some really big opportunities to play some big shows in Japan, and it was during our tour that the shows were going to be, and she's like, talked to us and said, guys, you know, if there's any way you can just fill in for these 4 shows, it would mean the world, like, you know. So yeah, me, Kiki, and Constance, our other guitarist, had to step up to the plate. And this is the first time I've ever sang, never ever wanted to do it, and I didn't think I could, not only just sing at all, but even sing and play bass like at the same time, because that's like a whole new challenge as well.
It is,
but it was like, once I did it, I'm like, oh, I didn't realize I could do it, and that was actually kind of fun. And like,
well, yeah, it's one of those things that for initially must seem like a complete disaster turns into a massive opportunity, at least an opportunity for yourself to kind of go, hey, wait a second, I can do this, and then it lights a fire that you didn't even have before, you know. And so I think that's really cool that happened, and that's what I always say. It's always dangerous when someone says, can you cover for me? Because sometimes the person that's covering for you, you know, can take your spot. You know, in this instance, that's not really quite the case, but it did obviously sort of awaken a part of you that said, well, now I want to be out front, or I want to.
Totally, because my biggest, like, you know, fallback or, you know, like before was I could never find the right singer. You know, it was like,
that's how so many people become singers. Yeah, myself included. We all become singers because you can't really find that person that, you know, that does what you think it should be, you know.
Yeah, and it was always holding me back, even though I was always kind of like wanting to be the leader, and I could be the leader. But now that I knew I could, I was like, well, I'm just gonna start my own project and keep this going, because, you know, now I could fully envision, you know, do my vision. No one can break this up because it's my band.
It's your thing, yeah.
And yeah, I can just keep it rolling. So that's how Vigil of War started.
And that's what year is that you started Vigil of War officially?
That was 2017.
Oh, okay, wow. So really, probably not long after I met you, you were. It was probably just starting to kind of happen, I guess.
I mean, I think when I had met you, I was still doing She Demons at the time. So.
I think you were. I think that's where the conversation kind of happened. Yeah. I think the Canada thing and the Priya thing all kind of connected those dots to some degree, yeah. So then Vigil of War. How quickly was Vigil of War? Because it seems like if you guys have only been around that long, and it seems like you guys were like doing like weekly gigs at the Whisky a Go-Go within a year or something like that of the band being formed.
Yeah, I mean, it did come together really fast. So I feel like for me, deadlines have always been worked in my favor, because it's like once someone puts something there or an opportunity, I just like have to do it, you know? Like, so
Right.
basically what had happened was my friend's band, Barbed Wire Dolls, had messaged me saying, hey, we have a residency coming up in April. She messages me in, I don't know, maybe February or something. And we'd love you to do it. Is your project ready? And I'm like, yup. And it was like, I literally had like one song, like demo of a song, and like no bandmates yet. And I'm just like, frick. Like, but yeah, so 6 weeks, I found a band, like wrote the rest of the songs, and, you know, got merch made, got our logo made. Like, it really just like lit the fire that I needed under my butt, you know, to like get it going.
Absolutely, yeah.
Then it just started
Yeah,
happening.
you literally could still be in a rehearsal space jamming if this opportunity hadn't come along and been like, yup, we got to just make it happen.
Yeah.
That's
So
amazing.
I always it's always worked for me, I guess, like the deadline kind of thing. And
now, how many, I'm trying to think release wise, because it's such a different time now. Back in the day, it would be like, well, we played and then we got signed and we made a record and we made another record. And now it's sort of like, I mean, in your generation, it's sort of like, it's a totally different animal. And in many ways, almost kind of better that music gets made, you put it out when you want to put it out, you do what you do, and you do whatever you want to do. I mean, it's clearly still, even though the next step for you is getting a phone call, not unlike the She Demons phone call, suddenly Dragonforce is calling you. So you're already like doing this thing in Hollywood. For all intents and purposes, you guys are you know, very successful as far as like a local Los Angeles band. And being in Los Angeles, it's kind of like, you know, you're planting this little garden, and when the record companies and all these people come around, they live in your garden. So it's kind of nice because when we you know, if you're from somewhere far away and you're planting your garden, you have to bring that garden to Los Angeles for people to see it. Right. So you guys are there, opportunity is there, everything's there. Then out of nowhere, where does the Dragonforce thing happen? Because Dragonforce is at first when I first heard, I meant like Dragonforce, like ALICIA and Dragonforce. I just thought it sounded like, I don't know, like two food groups that kind of, I thought, well, once I thought about it, well, of course, ALICIA's qualified to play with almost anybody. But it just seems so like, wow, that's crazy. And they're like a massive, huge thing, especially in that community. Like they're just like really great.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a similar thing as She Demons were just like, overnight my life changes, you know? Like, basically what had happened was, because we'd been playing in LA so much with my band, Vigil of War, then we had some regulars starting to come to our shows, and one of those guys is really good friends with Herman from the band. So when it came time to Fred leaving Dragonforce and they were looking for a bass player, and Herman mentioned, you know, we're thinking about maybe getting a female bassist, I'm not sure yet. My name was thrown in the hat, and then all of a sudden I get a, you know, DM on Instagram from Herman Lee being like, hey, my name is, you know, Herman, and I play for the power metal band Dragonforce. Would you like to audition? And what?
That's so cool.
And honestly, my first thought was, there's no way in hell, like, I'm good enough for Dragonforce, like this, woo, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, was that at all imposing to you? Like, were you familiar enough with the music to kind of go, wait a second, like it'd be like if Racer X called me, I'd be like, well, I appreciate that, but I'm not qualified for this gig. I'm not saying you're not. I mean, you pull it off so great. It's like no one would question your ability at all. But it definitely seems like, okay, let me take a listen here and see what. Did you have to sit down and do some like woodshedding and go, okay,
Totally. I mean, I've always been a firm believer in like the just say yes and figure it out. So I mean,
a lot of people need to learn that lesson, and I'm so glad you say that, because so many of us say that. Brent Fitz and I, the drummer for Slash's band, he and I are always big believers in like you said with your band, like with the Vigil of War. It's like, can you play this show on this day? Yes, I can. I don't have a band and I don't have songs, but I will figure out a way to do it. And so many people will go like, but I don't have a band. but I don't have songs. No, I can't, you know.
And then the opportunity's missed.
So and it just goes away, So
yeah, I mean, I had to put in so many hours to even feel comfortable enough. And I mean, my arm is like twice as big now, like because of all the hours that I've spent Dragonforcing. But like, I've really.
I love that it's a verb.
I don't know.
Dragonforcing. I love that it's a verb. Dragonforcing.
It's a verb.
Yeah. So, but again, it goes back to that thing from before of like playing with people who are, you know, ostensibly more advanced as players, or they kind of exist in a world. Like, I think you and I are in a similar way where we dig like punk rock and hard rock that's fairly simplistic, not simplistic, but like it trims around a lot of the fat. We don't really care about all that extra stuff. And then you get into a thing like Dragonforce, and there's a lot going on and a lot of great musicality going on that's sort of like, oh, okay. Yeah. And you got to kind of like, if you're working at your comfort zone, there's sort of like, it pushes you to that next level of like, which now in a lot of ways, your comfort zone your threshold for comfort has stretched to a whole other level now. So was it like, what's the audition process like for this? Are you going down to like mates or something like that? Or just, how is this working?
Well, the thing is that Herman's actually the only one that lives in the LA area. Everyone else is like in Europe and UK.
That's right.
So
that's right. Yeah.
I didn't even really get to know any of the guys until basically our tour. I'd met them once at their show, but it was like a series of, you know, going to Herman's house, talking to him and figure out what, you know, they expected from me, and then, you know, learning some songs, submitting it over video, and then a couple of weeks later I hear back and be like, all right, now you know, just that kind of thing. Like,
so was he doing, sorry to cut you off, was he doing this with like other people as well, or
yeah.
as far as, oh, okay, he was.
So
okay.
I was just nervous. I really wanted it after I had already set my mind to it. I mean, but I was just grateful for the opportunity to audition, and that's what I kind of thought, like, you know, if I don't get this, obviously this is just, I figured this is going to be a really good opportunity to see what this kind of, you know, level of a band expects from an audition, because I've never really, other than She Demons, which was completely different because Jerry has his own camp, and you know, sure. I don't know, it's just every opportunity is like really made me grow a lot. And
totally.
I practiced more than I ever have in the last year, you know, and just like really increased my skill level playing songs that I wouldn't normally like have, you know, like doing things that I wouldn't have normally have done. So yeah, I mean, it was great. And
now, like, do you find, it's a whole other animal, because you're not unlike me, because I've been doing this, you know, my whole life as well, but it wasn't really until the Slash thing where it became tour buses. You know, I toured the world in vans and every other, you know, buses on occasion, but it wasn't the norm. Yeah. And suddenly I'm in Slash's band, and it's, you know, festivals, you're higher up on the bill in festivals, you're, you know, the size of venue is a whole other animal than I was normally accustomed to. And it just changes your entire game. But watching what I've seen of you with the Dragonforce guys, which is risers and stuff, you know, it's like, it's a whole other animal. You're like, but you look so comfortable at it that it just made me go like, well, yeah, because she's been sort of engineered for this, whether you knew that or not, that you were sort of propelling yourself to this kind of thing, whether you remain in Dragonforce the rest of your life or not. It just sort of like, it's as if you were sort of preparing for this since School of Rock to get up and do exactly this. So was there a transition period for you? Was there I mean, I'm assuming that there's some sort of, and not choreography, but there is a whole thing that goes on with a larger show, that it's kind of like, there's in-ears now, there's wireless packs, there's the whole other animal, that there's a guitar tech, you know what I mean? Like you're so accustomed to just having your one bass, and all of a sudden you got like, you got this bass for these songs, and then you got another bass for those songs, and that whole thing, it just becomes this whole other, and then you got to come back to the Whisky a Go-Go with your band and go back to like getting there in the van or whatever. And so but was there some sort of transition period going into this larger medium that was weird, or was it just fairly cool right
I mean,
away?
honestly, yeah, because the few months leading up to just practicing every day and stressing myself out so much, because it wasn't just that We didn't get a single rehearsal before our tour, but like it was also, I've never used in-ears before ever. Never used wireless ever, you know. So all of this stuff was brand new to me. I didn't even know the bandmates really, other than Herman. So I'm walking into like essentially a tour full like of strangers in a whole completely different genre, where it's like, you know, in my mind I'm thinking, well, geez, metal fans, like they're gonna hate me, like I'm a female, they're already judging me. Like I was just shitting my pants for probably like 3 or 4 months. And like that's why I like really try to work my ass off. That I feel like once I finally got there, and after the first like show or two, it was just so much weight lifted off my shoulders when it was starting to go well, that it was like that's when I got my comfort zone, because it was like, thank God, I've been working my ass off and stressing out about every single thing, and I was probably not that fun to be around because I was like, stressed out all the time, and like I really didn't see anybody that much like in that time period, because I was just here Dragonforcing all day, like
Dragonforce.
But yeah, so it was just, I think it was just the weight lifted off my shoulders, and that's where I became comfortable and happy and just stoked to, you know, and everyone there obviously in the band is just so great and welcoming and nice.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's such a, I mean, because just no matter what you do, there's a concern like, am I going to get along with these people? I got to live with these people, because you end up on in a tour. For those that don't really know, you end up living in each other's pocket for several months at a time, or weeks at a time. Some, you know, and it's sort of like, if you don't get along with somebody, it can be excruciating. You know what I mean? And I think that's,
totally.
You know, you were in Vigil of War, which is essentially your project. And so you get along with everybody just fine. If you don't, they probably aren't there anymore. But so with this, you know, I think it's really exciting to hear you say, you know, because stepping out of your comfort zone like that is not easy for anybody, because it's like you very well could have just kept doing your thing and playing, and it becomes normal. There was a time where playing at the Whisky a Go-Go probably seemed super scary. Like, oh boy, you know, like that's not comfortable either. But it sort of seems a little bit more attainable when you've, you know, once you've done it, you're like, oh, okay. But then now that you've done this, do you think it sort of, it sort of like, is it awakened another part of you that sort of makes you go, well, now I want to try and, you know, get to this level with my project, which I suppose everybody wants to get to a level like that with whatever they got going on.
Oh yeah. I mean, I never want to stop growing and learning, and, you know, would definitely love to keep pushing myself as far as I can go. I mean, I'm perfectly happy too, like, you know, slugging it out with my band in the mom van or whatever, you know, like I love that aspect of it too, as well as, like, you know, the tour bus stuff. But like, I mean, we were just before Corona happened about to open up for Iron Maiden in the Philippines, and that was like freaking me out, but I'm like so excited. So hopefully we get to do that eventually. But, you know, like playing in an arena, I've definitely never done. So like that's something hopefully, you know, on my bucket list that'll happen when things start getting back to normal.
I know. I felt for you once this coronavirus happened. It was like, oh man, it was just starting to kind of happen. But I'm one of those relatively optimistic people where I kind of feel like, look, it's going to be what it's going to be, but we're going to get to the other side of this thing.
Yeah,
you know, it really sucks for people like you and me, because you're, you know, I know we share that like-minded thing of like, I just want to play, you know, I just want to be on stage. I just want to record. I want to write. I want to jam.
Yeah.
So putting us in this position where we're like, that's why I'm doing this, talking to you, because I'm like trying to find things to do with myself. But the so the other thing I wanted, one of the last things before I let you know, drag you into we'll be doing this for like the next 5 hours of me going on and on. But now, is there any, you know, what is the difference from your standpoint in playing with females and playing with males? Because I've predominantly played with guys my whole life, and I have played with a couple of girl singers and stuff in my day and whatnot, but it's I've always been very sort of like, I have seen some amazing drummers who happen to be women, you know what I mean? And I've seen some amazing guitar players, and I mean, starting to see girls like Nita Strauss and people like that, and Orianthi and all these people, you know, getting all kinds of recognition. It's sort of, I find it so liberating, but at the same time, I feel like, how is it the 21st century and we're still talking about the fact that that person is a female and that one's a male, and that something's, like you said, with joining a thing like Dragonforce and feeling like, I'm a girl. People are going to think that's weird. I think that's awesome that Herman actually thought to himself, let's get a female, like, get some like different
Yeah.
energy in this thing. I mean, that's really cool. But do you, from your standpoint, because you're, one of the only people I can ask, is there like a noticeable difference between playing with guys or playing with girls, even in Vigil of War, which is like 50% female? Is it? I imagine it's probably not that different, really, as far as music goes.
Yeah, I guess I always just grew up like I just didn't see like the difference. I just looked at everybody like people. Like it wasn't
Totally.
until like I think I got older that like once you reach a certain age, people start treating you different, and like all of a sudden you're a woman and you're like, you know what I mean? And so I'm like, oh, it's you notice how sometimes other people treat you, but like when you're in it, I don't really like. I've had two all-girl bands, and then I've played with females just as much as I have with males, I guess.
Of course, yeah.
I really don't find it that different. It might be different for them, but like to me, I just feel like I am one of the guys when I'm with the guys, and I'm one of the girls when I don't know. Like it was so much fun though to have like she demons with my girl gang, like it.
Sure.
There was definitely an element to that, but I don't know. I think I just feel comfortable with who I'm around, and I hope they feel the same way. I don't know.
Well, I think so. Like you say, you basically land on the term musician either way. And to me,
yeah.
I almost feel stupid bringing that up as a topic, but I think it is something that people kind of feel interested in, because there's probably a lot of female, up and coming musicians who feel like, is it weird or anything like that? And I always kind of feel like, no, because I mean, the cool thing is like looking at, say, Jack White, who has like female musicians in and out of his band all the time. And he doesn't really seem to think, it's on purpose necessarily. It's just the drum position is open and she's the best drummer. I want to use her,
Yeah.
And I think that that's true in so many factors, because it's not like you're casting a part in a film and we're looking for an actress, It's like, no, you're looking for the most qualified person for this position. And I got to give Herman a lot of credit for going, like, let's change. As soon as you go, well, we're looking for a bass player and here's the 5 guys you can look at. It's like, well, what about the 10 best bass players that you can think of? And someone like you falls into that list. And the next thing he knows, it changes the dynamic, and it changes, musically, if you close your eyes, it doesn't matter who's on stage, male, female, or otherwise. But I think it's really great to see you holding your own with, first of all, guys older than you. I don't know how much older they are, but you're the youngest one in the band, I assume, probably by a stretch.
20 years older than me.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And that says so much. You're playing with people who are 20 years older than you. That says everything right there. You deserve to be there because you're good enough to be there. And I think that it's really exciting to see what comes next. And I guess that's where we land on the last thing to talk about is, it's a hard one to end on, because so what's next? And we all go like, I have, everybody has plans or ideas, but it's hung up in, being in a pandemic. By the time I air this, the pandemic might be all over and everybody's kind of like,
yeah, let's hope so.
I know.
I mean,
but so for you, I would assume you're going to play the game in the 21st century. And I talk about this a lot. I play with Miles Kennedy from Alter Bridge. He plays with us in Slash. He has his own solo band. Slash has Guns N' Roses. He has us. I have 1,000 things going on. But it seems like in this day and age, it's not like you're in the Eagles and that's your band. You know what I mean? It seems like everybody has multiple projects going on because of the way the industry works, and record sales aren't, everything. In fact, everything's kind of like playing on the road. But I assume you're going to continue Vigil of War and nurture that as long as you can in between Dragonforce stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
until the end of time.
Whether it is Vigil of War, which I don't plan on ending anytime soon, but I definitely always want to have my own band, no matter what that project is. But yeah, I mean, right now, I mean, we're just, well, we can't play shows, so let's take advantage of this time where we're just sitting around and try to write some songs and record and do music videos. So that's what we've been doing.
Yeah.
Right now. And then of course, when shows start happening again, then hopefully we can, anytime that Dragonforce has time off, I'm trying to fill that slot with Vigil of War stuff, like we want to get back to the UK, but like just how, you know, things for both of us have kind of like, you never know what's going to happen. Something could happen overnight where it's just like, oh, well, this opportunity came up and, you know, blah, 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 blah. Like, I don't know what my life's going to look like. But for right now, my focus is like, I want to get as much done with Vigil of War right now. I love playing with Dragonforce, so I want to keep doing that when we can. And yeah.
Yeah, you're singing the exact same song all of us are singing. It's kind of like we have the thing that we do, and when you get some free time, you do something else. Or, you know, I've always got a bunch of things going on, but it is very, very similar for everybody who kind of like has, you know, something as great as Dragonforce comes along. You would be silly to not chase that down. And like I say, you're going to have so many opportunities come your way at your age, and you know, it just watching it happen as your friend, just kind of, you know, objectively watching you sort of take these steps up. It's really awesome to see, because I, you know, just knowing you and meeting you and going, what an awesome person. And I'm so happy she's talented, you know, because you meet somebody, you like them, you go to see their band, and you're just hoping that they're not terrible, you know.
Right.
And of course, I love you guys, and I love Shane and Kiki and the whole band. And then getting to see you kind of go on and do this, it's like, well, now the sky's the limit. I mean, anything is possible. So I love just being able to kick back and watch you just sort of like do your thing. And I'll be, you know, when I'm in my 80s, I'll be coming to see you in hockey arenas and holding a lighter up, or whatever the equivalent is at that time.
Yeah. No, I always appreciated how supportive you have always been, you know, because it does mean a lot, and you know, thank you for that.
Oh, always. Well, like I say, I really look forward to watching where you go from here, and hopefully this whole thing passes enough so you can go and play with Iron Maiden, because that would be a trip.
Oh my God.
We've done festivals with Iron Maiden, but I've never done an actual tour with Iron Maiden. So yeah, that's a big deal. You have to do that.
Yes, fingers crossed.
My fingers are crossed for you in every possible way. But thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
And we will we'll do a check-in further down the road when you get back from Iron Maiden or whatever crazy adventure comes your way. But in the meantime, good luck with everything you're doing around LA with the guys and the gang, and please say hi to everybody for me. And I can't wait to see where you go from here. I'm very excited.
Oh, well, thank you, Todd. I appreciate it.
Anytime. We'll keep in touch.
Yes, hell yeah.
Big love. Take care.